Professor, thank you for your time. You say the language used to describe racial and cultural diversity in workplaces in Australia has become too sanitised. Explain what that means for viewers at home.
First of all, thank you for your interest in the research, and thank you for having me on tonight. The language has changed over time, and language evolves over time. What we're trying to do is to come up with very accessible language. So we've come up with 5 standardised measures that are very much based on the Australian context and for an Australian workforce audience. In terms of how it's become sanitised over time, we tested race-based language, which is very much an American approach, with our more Australian-focused language, which can be considered to be a little bit sanitised because it doesn't focus on colour and race. It focuses on culture, languages spoken, country of birth, and when we tested both of them, we were very deliberate in the language and the measures that we came up with so that we could suit an Australian audience.
So your report makes the point that in 21st century Australia, Lebanese workers, for example, may speak English, French, Arabic, be practising Christians or not, but the richness of their background isn't properly reflected by just describing them as culturally diverse. Ultimately, I'm paraphrasing you here, but correct me if I'm wrong, this is about celebrating individuals and the individual experience rather than classifying someone as broadly just a member of a group.
It's a bit of both, and that's what our measures actually do. Because they cover a broad range, they don't just cover a broad demographic characteristic such as country of birth, but they also cover cultural background, which is how someone identifies, how someone sees themselves and how others see them. And we're very clear about using these measures, these 3 measures together as a core group so that we can capture both the group characteristics, which you're so clear on mentioning, and also that individual characteristic, which we think is really important because it provides us with a more complex understanding of what cultural diversity actually is.
Right, I know my viewers, some will be sceptical about concepts like cultural diversity, particularly for communities that have been here for multiple generations. I'm interested in what your research tells you when it comes to productivity and efficacy and efficiencies of workplaces. Is or why is cultural diversity a good thing?
It's an amazing thing. Here we are with a fantastic opportunity to understand what our workforce looks like in terms of its cultural diversity. I think your point about generations being here, this is what sparked the research. I've been doing this research with Dr. Jane O'Leary from Diversity Council Australia for over a decade now. And whenever I've gone out to talk to people about this, I remember one woman putting up her hand and saying, I've been here for 6 generations, but I look like this and I'm constantly asked where I'm from. So to capture that diversity and to untap that diversity, we think that we need to start measuring it and reporting on it. And then it's only that way that we can start capitalising on it. So I think you capture exactly what we're trying to do. The multicultural market is worth $75 billion annually. We have organisations that are implementing policies targeting cultural diversity, which are pretty much stabbing in the dark because we don't know what our workforce looks like. So we think it's a really important way to start capitalising on your human capital and the cultural diversity and cultural capabilities of that human capital.
Right. I know that our language spread in Australia is very well regarded overseas for translation services and many other things. So I'll be interested in the final report. Associate Professor Dimitria Groutsis, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.